Today, we are diving deep into the mind of one of philosophy's most brilliant and honestly most disruptive thinkers, the 18th century Scottish philosopher, David Hume. This is a guy who basically took a wrecking ball to our most basic assumptions about reality. He argued that the way our minds actually work is profoundly different and, frankly, much stranger than we usually think. So, we're going to explore his guide to what we can really, truly claim to know. So, let's start with a really simple question. If I hold a glass out and I just let go, what's going to happen? It'll fall and shatter, right? Of course. You know this. But how do you know it? You'd probably say something like, well, gravity, or the impact causes it to break. And that sounds perfectly logical. But David Hume would stop you right there. He'd say that your certainty, that feeling of knowing, is based on something way more mysterious than pure reason. To really get Hume's skepticism, we have to start with his most fundamental distinction. He argued that everything, and I mean everything, happening in your mind right now can be sorted into just two simple categories. These are the building blocks of all our thoughts. Okay, so first up, you have impressions. Think of these as your direct, raw, vivid experiences. It is the bright red you're seeing when you look at an apple. It's the actual searing pain you feel when you touch a hot stove. It's that rush of anger or that warmth of affection. Impressions are life, happening to you in real time with full force and vivacity. They're the real deal. And then there's the second category, ideas. For Hume, this is beautifully simple. An idea is just a faint copy of an impression. It's the memory of that red apple. It's you, a week later, thinking about the pain of that hot stove. Like Hume said, the thought is a faithful mirror of the original feeling, but the colors are faint and dull in comparison. It's the echo, not the shout. And this, right here, leads to Hume's first bombshell. Every single thought, every concept, every idea in your head, it doesn't matter how abstract or complex, from the idea of a unicorn to the idea of justice, it all ultimately traces back to a direct sensory impression. If you have some big philosophical term that you can't trace back to an impression, Hume says it's just meaningless noise. So this principle, that all real knowledge has to start with experience, that's the key that unlocks Hume's most famous and maybe his most unsettling argument, his attack on the very idea of cause and effect. Think about a game of pool. You see one ball rolling across the table, it smacks into a second ball, and then that second ball rolls away. We all instinctively say the first ball caused the second one to move. It's obvious. But Hume challenges us here. He says, look closer. What are your eyes, your senses, actually reporting back to you? And here's where we see the crucial gap in our thinking. On the one hand, what our impressions give us is just one event, then another event. We see this constant conjunction, as he calls it. We see it happen 1,000 times. But on the other hand, our mind jumps to this conclusion that there's some kind of secret power, some force, some necessary connection that makes B have to follow A. Hume's killer point is that we never, ever perceive this connection. It's not an impression. We've never seen or heard or felt causation itself. So if we don't directly see causation, where does our incredibly strong belief in it come from? Well, Hume says it's a trick of the mind, a process of habit. After you see a flame and feel heat over and over and over again, your mind just develops this powerful custom. So the next time you see a flame, this custom kicks in, and your mind automatically just jumps to the expectation of heat. And this expectation, it's a strong internal feeling. And here's the key. We mistake that feeling of expectation inside our own heads for some logical necessity out in the real world. Our belief in cause and effect, says Hume, is a product of psychology, not logic. Okay, so now that Hume has revealed causation to be a mental habit, he applies that exact same sharp experience-based thinking to another one of philosophy's most tangled debates, free will. And he argues the entire problem is really just a confusion over words. First, let's just redefine the word necessity. In physics, we see necessity when one billiard ball's motion is predictably followed by another. For Hume, the exact same thing applies to people. Human behavior is surprisingly uniform. As he puts it, the same motives always produce the same actions. Ambition, greed, friendship, these are just the predictable causes of how people act. So for Hume, necessity just means that human behavior is, for the most part, predictable. Next up, liberty, or freedom. People often think this has to mean our actions are totally uncaused, that they come from nowhere. Hume thinks that's just absurd.
His definition is so much simpler. You have liberty if you can do what you want to do. If you choose to stand still, you can. If you choose to walk, you can. The only person who really lacks liberty is someone who's physically constrained, like a prisoner in chains.
And just like that, the whole conflict just kind of vanishes. Your actions are necessary because they come predictably from your character and your motives, but at the same time, they are also free because you're not in chains. You're acting according to your will. The big takeaway here is that predictability and freedom aren't opposites at all. Just by clearing up the definitions, Hume shows the ancient problem of free will might not even be a problem to begin with. So if our knowledge of the world is built on observing these regular, predictable patterns, how should we handle claims that defy those patterns completely? Hume applies his reasoning to the most extreme claims you can imagine: miracles. This is Hume's starting point. What even is a law of nature? For Hume, it's not some rule written in a cosmic book. It's simply a summary of a firm and unalterable human experience. For instance, we have a completely uniform experience that humans don't walk on water, or that dead people don't come back to life. A miracle, by its very definition, is a reported exception to this universal experience. So the evidence against the miracle happening is literally the entire weight of all of human history. This sets up a direct confrontation of evidence, a battle of proofs. On one side, you have the proof for a law of nature, which is based on countless, uniform experiences from everyone, everywhere. On the other side, you have proof from human testimony, which, as we all know from experience, can be pretty unreliable. So for it to be rational to believe a miracle, Hume argues, the testimony has to be so unbelievably strong that it would actually be more of a miracle for the witnesses to be lying or mistaken than for the law of nature to have been broken in the first place. And as a very keen observer of human nature, Hume points out that testimony for miracles rarely ever meets this incredibly high bar. He notes, using the language of his time, that such stories often come from what he called ignorant and barbarous nations. He also argued that we humans just have this natural love for surprising and wonderful stories. Plus, reporting a miracle can bring a person fame and power. And finally, the miracles of one religion are often used to discredit others, so they basically just cancel each other out. He's not saying miracles are logically impossible, just that we have never had and probably never will have enough good evidence to believe in one. So, after deconstructing our belief in cause and effect, in free will, in miracles, where does all this leave us? What's the ultimate lesson from Hume's skeptical journey? Well, it's a powerful call for intellectual modesty. This is the core of Hume's advice. He's basically saying that our ability to reason is best suited for the stuff of common life and experience. When we try to venture beyond that, into these grand metaphysical questions about the origins of the universe or the ultimate nature of reality, we're pushing our minds way past their limits, into a realm of what he calls sophistry and illusion. His philosophy is a powerful reminder to just be humble about what we can truly claim to know. And this is the challenge Hume leaves for all of us. He forces us to look at our own certainties. How many of our own fundamental beliefs about the world, about ourselves, about what's right and wrong, aren't actually the product of cold, hard logic, but are really just the result of habit, of feeling, and of custom? It's a profound question, and it can seriously change the way you see, well, everything. If this topic has captured your interest and you'd like to dive deeper, the book is called An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding by David Hume.